It's time for the Ravagers to rise once again to glory!
You are listening to The Ravager Report, a FoxNext Marvel Strike Force podcast dedicated to bringing you the latest news, information, and updates. With your hosts, Dorian.
It is a name what strikes fear into the hearts of anyone what hears it!
And Hebrew Hammer.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Hello and welcome to episode 45 of The Ravager Report. I am, as always, your host, Dorian, and unfortunately, Hebrew is still on vacation, basking in the Bahamas on his cruise on his final island, so he is not going to be able to join us tonight. However, we are extremely happy to have with us tonight Jason Bender, the creative director for Marvel Strike Force. Jason, how are you tonight?
I am great. I mean, I'm not in the Bahamas, but I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not either, unfortunately. So I'm definitely jealous of Hebrew. But you know what? If I was in the Bahamas, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So, you know, you take the good, you take the bad. And, you know, the good is being here with you, obviously. So, Jason, for those that don't know who you are or what you do, why don't you take a few minutes and kind of introduce yourself and let people know what you do at FoxNext?
Alrighty then. So I'm Jason Bender, the creative director of Marvel Strike Force. I joke that my main contribution was naming the game, but generally, what I'm in charge of is the design elements of the game, which is to say the general mechanics and the systems, character development. Writing, game balance, sort of oversee all of that stuff. It's a little bit of everything, but if it has to do with sort of gameplay or world building or fiction, usually I'm sort of at the beginning of that process and then overseeing it.
Awesome. That is very exciting stuff. I've done some game development in the past myself, and what you're doing, I've not been on that end of it, but that just sounds so amazing because being in control of all that stuff is just so much fun. Now, also with us, but kind of sitting in the background, is Cerebro. So he wants to make sure that your old buddy Dorian here stays on the straight and narrow. So
He's got a cattle prod pointed at me in case I get off fat. So
control. Yeah, so we've got Dad with us, apparently. So, Cerebro, welcome, and glad you could be here. So, Jason, without any further ado, let's jump into this and answer some of the questions that have been kind of burning up the community. So, before you started working on Strike Force, were you into comics and superheroes? I mean, has that been kind of a lifelong thing, or is that relatively new, or?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So as far as I can remember, and I think back to my oldest memories. You know, some of us have a memory box stored away in the garage with things that our parents remember fondly, but we were too young to remember at all. In there, I have a red cape with like a yellow lightning bolt on it, either for, you know, Shazam or somebody, that I remember jumping off of the kitchen chairs with and damn near killing myself, just so that it would fly behind me, you know, as I was flying. And so it goes back to my earliest memories. You know, waking up on Saturday morning, I'm an 80s kid, so Saturday morning cartoons, you know, Spider-Man and Friends kind of stuff. And then on into the 90s, with the X-Men, you know, and I collected comics. I had subscriptions, you know, when I was younger. And then of course that's evolved over time into, you know, I still watch every single MCU movie and Netflix show, when they come out.
Oh, very nice. So that actually kind of leads us into our next question of which do you prefer? So the MCU is just huge, right? So over the past 10 years, it's become this multi-billion-dollar, just massive enterprise. But what's your personal preference? Do you prefer what they've done with the MCU, or do you prefer the comic book storylines?
So, you know, as someone who grew up with comics, they will always be the source material. There's a special place in my heart. You can do things in comics that you can't do anywhere else. And that's the heart, that's home, that's where everything comes from. But then again, I waited for 20 years, you know, for a good superhero movie. And so to have a bunch of them in a row that are just getting better and better, and now they're starting to get a little more diverse and interesting, has been incredibly gratifying. I mean, I've just waited for so long for that. And now it's nice reliably getting wonderful movies and different ones. Like as we get into cool stuff like Ragnarok, they're getting more colorful and weird. And you know, I never thought I'd see Rocket Raccoon on screen, and that is bringing me joy.
That is absolutely amazing. Though I think you just made Tobey Maguire cry just a little bit.
He can handle it.
Yes, he can. So who is your favorite comic book character?
Well, that's hard to answer because I like different characters for different reasons. So I'm gonna stray a little bit from Marvel here for a second and say I actually like I had subscriptions to Spider-Man, Punisher, Hawkeye. I used to collect, Thing. G.I. Joe was a big one for me because I was a G.I. Joe. Iron Fist, I kind of all over the map. A lot of like before X-Men, and then when X-Men came out, I loved sort of Deadpool's Circle Chase, and I loved Juggernaut and Havoc and Multiple Man doing cool stuff in the 90s. So I've been along for the ride. But some of the stuff that I also remember fondly is like 2000 AD stuff, and things like Rogue Trooper or Martial Law, and of course, like, who doesn't love Batman, and my red cape was Superman. So I kind of go everywhere. But obviously I've been living with Marvel for a long time. And what I love about Marvel is that Marvel is, who are these people? Who is Peter Parker? They get really, really personal. And I think the movies have done a great job of extracting that from the comics and then telling those stories on screen.
So since you mentioned Peter Parker, and we'll stick with the Tom Holland version, who do you think is better? Do you think the comic book version, or do you think that Tom Holland has done a really good job? And even if you want to go with either Garfield or Maguire, what do you think of their portrayal of that? I mean, obviously Spider-Man being one of the most iconic characters in comic book history. What do you think of their portrayals?
I like that we get different portrayals. I like that they each focused on a different part of it. They all did different things well. I got to admit, though, like, Holland is stupidly charismatic and charming. Like, how could you not like that guy? Right? It's just, he's so damn likable that he's been my favorite because he's just relentlessly charming. And the action has been good for a long time. I mean, Maguire showed us that the action movies could kind of look like the comics, and that was a big deal. But we've been evolving since then. So I like different things about all of them, but I think Holland is winning the race right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Now, I actually enjoyed the Andrew Garfield version. I thought that he was really good, kind of as a darker, quippier Spider-Man. But I have to agree with you on Holland, and my 13-year-old daughter definitely agrees. The only MCU movies I can get her to go watch are the ones that have him in it. So, we
only had that boyish smile,
right? So yeah, it is his burden to bear. So going into a little bit of your history of like before working on Strike Force, did you work on any other games? Kind of what's your history there of like game development?
Well, I'm kind of aging myself here, but I've been doing this since the 90s now, and like back in the day, back when we had CDs and whatnot. So I started off at Nova Logic back in the day. They made sim, like kind of simmy games. So like Comanche. My first game I think was Armored Fist 3 that I worked on. Delta Force was some of this. I made levels for Delta Force, and that was voxels, like way back in the day. And back when you said voxels, people didn't think Minecraft; they thought Nova Logic games.
Right.
Then it gets into a little bit of the history of the studio. This is worth noting. The people that founded the studio that made Strike Force, many of us worked together in the early 2000s, going back to Command and Conquer Generals. So we made RTS games for EA for a long time.
Okay.
Battle for Middle Earth 2 was the first game that I was a lead designer on. And we went under the later Command and Conquers and Red Alert, stuff like that, before sort of scattering to the winds and then coalescing back together and to make Strike Force.
Oh man, that is amazing. I mean, when you bring up Nova Logic, that is just flat out some absolutely old time, some of the greatest games. I mean, the military simulations that you guys did back there were absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was super fun to work on. It was really cool. But we got to do all kinds of stuff. We did tank games, helicopter games, shooters. We made Tachyon, which is a space game, which was really exciting. So the thing about the studio is that we have people who have made every kind of game. every kind of game that you can imagine. So everybody brings something different to the table, and that has helped us. That's one of the reasons why we went a little bit ham on the visuals for a mobile game, with our animations and our characters and our environments. At launch, we were, a little bit nuts on the graphics, and people were like, "What are you doing? This is unnecessary." But we so many of us had come from like console and PC games that were like, "This is what we like to do. We want to look at stuff," and so we sort of jammed it onto the phone.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the animation was some of the biggest draw for people because they love seeing. I know I do, and I hear a lot of talk about people loving the animations. When I first started, we talked incessantly about just how gorgeous this game looked, and you guys really did hit it out of the ballpark on that one. So
well, I really appreciate that, and that has been the most fun thing. I mean, we have a couple of martial artists on our animation team, and it cracks me up because they do a lot of the moves that you see in the game. They will lay pads out and they will do them. They'll take their shoes off and they'll do like a freaking flip kick, and then they'll use that. They'll video themselves with their phones, and then they'll use that as reference when doing something for a character. So like it just never gets old. Like walking down the hall and seeing someone do some capoeira or something. It's so great.
Oh, that is awesome. I know that one of the things that no matter what happens, you can see the absolute love that you guys have for this IP when you look at the artwork and the animation. I don't think there's any doubt.
I'll pass it on to the team because they put their hearts into it. And then we also have like on the design side, we joke about the writing and stuff, and Scientist Supreme, we sort of got to make our own character. We went a little nuts because I was, one of our guys was like, I don't know who our Scientist Supreme really is, but see if what you can come up with for this chapter. And he just went bananas and came up with like this character that makes me laugh every time. So like every part of the game, people have had a chance to put some heart and soul into it, and that has been like really rewarding.
Yeah, and look, as somebody who spent a few months working on AIM, thank you for all that. Actually, I'm working on them with. I'm looking to try them when they get a little bit higher up with Ultron because of his villain tech buff extensions. Oh man, that AIM security, she can get completely insane with that slow and multiple taunts because she's so tanky as a tank. So
you're a happy camper in the long run.
Oh, I hope so. I really do. So obviously, I'm sure you play Strike Force, yes?
Oh yeah, every day.
Okay. So what other games do you play? Any other mobile games other than Strike Force?
So everyone on the team plays a variety of games. I definitely do. We have to spread it out though, right? Because you can only play so many games at one time, just based on the hours it takes to get deep into anything. The game that I got hooked by pretty rough recently was Polytopia, and like that one was really fun. It was sort of like a light SimCity style game, and that was the one that really nailed me. And then this one is not much of a game; it's more of a toy. I've been playing Castle Wreck because of the physics. I love blowing up castles. Archero is a big one that people are playing right now. So it gets, and then this little indie game, a smaller game called Antihero, has been a lot of fun. So, but different people play different things. Some people are getting like into big time 4X games where you have to invest a lot of time and energy. Obviously we played tons of Galaxy Heroes. We have a lot of people who are friends with people on that team. Before all that, since we were Kabam for a while, a lot of Contest of Champions love.
Yeah, and you can see that. You can see those inspirations, obviously, from Contest of Champions and Galaxy of Heroes, both of which I play. I've been doing Galaxy of Heroes for November 2015, so long time player there. So obviously, I see a lot of the inspiration. That's what kind of brought me over here. But when you're deciding, for game modes, quality of life enhancements, different aspects of the game, do you find yourself drawing inspiration from those other games as you play them, or do you try to limit yourself and not kind of, take maybe something that somebody else has done, even if you can do it better?
Yeah, so we draw inspiration from everywhere. So the idea is that across the team, we want to know what's out there. We don't want to reinvent the wheel if someone has really made a good wheel. At the same time, to mix metaphors, we don't want to be cargo cult about it, which is to say, we don't want to take a mechanic that we like but don't really understand how it works and sort of put it into our game as an ill-fitted mechanic or system. So we try to deeply understand what's out there, what other people are doing, deeply understand our game, and try to use the right tool for the right job, and figure out like what cool thing can we do that really feels right for Strikeforce, that's going to be just going to be a good fit, that's something that people want. So we spend a lot of time also just with our ear to the ground, reading Reddit posts and even customer service comments and everything to just understand what people are asking for, and then to use yet a different metaphor. In the old Henry Ford era, inventor of the car, essentially, they said, Ford said, if I had given people what they asked for, I would have given them a faster horse, or they would have asked for a faster horse.
Right.
He didn't want to give them exactly what they asked for. He wanted to give them something that they wanted but didn't know how to describe. So our goal is to always try to figure out what the right thing to make is that's going to make everybody really, really happy and gets to the heart of what people are asking for and commenting on, and what the game is lacking or could really use.
Awesome. And so I want to kind of come back to something that you said there, where you were talking about, mechanics that you bring into the game. And there are, one of my favorite game modes, Alliance War. I love what you guys have done there. I think the strategy there is absolutely top notch. I think that what you guys did was you took something from another game and you enhanced it, made it better. For most respects, but there are a couple of things that people may not fully understand why you did something, or what the intent behind it was. So I'm just going to kind of come out and ask, what was the intent or the purpose behind the boost mechanic for Alliance War?
Yeah, so that one was interesting, right? So some of these things are hard to really tell how they're going to be used in the long run until you've lived with it, and sometimes we don't have the opportunity to live for something as long as we want, so we've got to kind of take a guess. So for that one, what happened was when we were playing it, we felt really frustrated that we didn't have a lot of agency in defense. Just, you see the other team chewing up your carrier, and it just becomes a race to try to blow up their carrier first, which is most of the mode anyway. But we really, really wanted something that would allow you some agency on defense. We talked about reviving defensive teams and healing them, and we talked about, putting blockers so that you could shield the room completely. We talked about all these different things. And all of them had pros and cons, including the boosts as they were launched. So that was the one that we settled on because while we knew it had downsides, it seemed like it would be ones that we could live with while still giving you some sense of agency. And we know that it's like, okay, sure, sometimes people might have to kind of dive bomb a boost to clear it, and then someone else has to jump in, and that may or may not be the most fun thing, but we thought it was the right blend of agency without too many side effects. I'm sure there was probably something better out there, but of all the things we tried, that was the one we liked the most.
Yeah, and I was actually, honored enough to be as part of that Alliance War beta. And I remember there being talk about, now I joined it a little bit later on, but I remember there being talk about the revive. And so I just, as a player, I want to thank you for not going that route.
So we did avoid a couple of potential problems. But the thing is, when we look at boosts, now we're in an interesting situation where people are they know it, they know how to use it, for better or worse, they know how to use the tool. So while we want to improve war and we're always looking at ways to tweak things, we don't want to take what's good about the tool and replace it with something that's different but not necessarily better. That's like better in some ways and worse in others. So if we see something that we know is like a perfect improvement that we're like, this is just flat out better, then we would spend time making it. And for the time being, we're happy to live with that until we come up with a brilliant solution.
And that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, as long as you guys are looking for, that always looking for that better thing, which is kind of what we as the players need, right? So, we need that, what's going to keep bringing us back. So that is awesome and really appreciate it. So,
and we love when people theory craft on Reddit about like, oh, it would be cool. What if they did this instead? If you guys if you folks have great ideas that you think is the obvious solution that we're not doing, we tend to read that and pick it up and think about it. So if there's a clear winner out there, talk about it. And we definitely take cues from what people are talking about.
That's awesome. And I know this wasn't. Can you think of an instance though where you have done that?
A lot of it goes into character design.
Okay.
I can't add like a perfect post to character tuning example off the top of my head, but what happens is when we design new characters, people will be like, "Gosh, I wish I could deal with this problem. If I just had something to do about this one thing." And then we try to build that into the next character. So it's tricky because we don't want to give you the perfect tool to invalidate the thing you just leveled up immediately.
Right.
Then you've wasted your time. You should be rewarded for investing in something, and you should be able to use it. But at some point, we try to say, okay, well, look, Minerva has been raffle stomping everybody for long enough. Like, let's give people an answer. So we look at it like that, and it's expressed, it's squirreled away here and there. But we do what we can. Some of it's subtle. It's like it's an economy tuning where we just say this next feature is going to drop more, whatever orange ability mats or something like that, because people seem to be just like starving for that. And every day there's a conversation about where we can fountain more gold in an intelligent way.
Awesome. Hey, look, as someone who just blew like 10 million after the Ultron nodes, more gold's always better. So I want to kind of come back again to something that you said there, because it's extremely fascinating to me how you guys go through this process. But what kind of goes into deciding what characters you're going to bring out, and then B, how do you go about deciding what their design's going to be?
Oh yeah, so that's really fascinating. Even though we've been doing it since before launch. It's fascinating to me to see that happen. That involves so many members of the team. In general, we look at our calendar and we say, okay, what's coming out that people are going to get excited about? For example, if Marvel tells us, hey, the Fantastic Four are going to be a thing, next year, they'll try to tell us what the comics world is doing. We try to be there for that, So if you were reading the new launch of Fantastic Four, we want to try to be there for that whenever we can, whenever we have the warning. It takes many months to get a character done from concept to completion to launch. So we don't always have the time to pivot. But for example, if we know Thor Ragnarok is coming out, we'll say something like, all right, well, let's make sure we have something that references that if we possibly can. Sometimes we miss it, right? Like we didn't do as many of those characters for Ragnarok, like really at all as we wanted to. And that got us thinking, and that put some things, things like that, movies like that, put characters on the roadmap. Fantastic Four is a good example of that. We really wanted to have them last January, but we just didn't have time. But we put them on the roadmap as a result of that conversation and said, all right, we're going to do them as soon as we can. But Endgame got in the way, so we've got to do something for Endgame. So what happens is we blend what's happening in the comics world, cinematic universe, and then what the game needs. Hey, we need more of a given character type. We need more X-Men or what have you. So the meta of the game combines with the comics world and the cinematics world and that ends up populating a lot of our roadmap for what we want to do. And then every now and then we get to put a little wild card in there, like America Chavez or someone who we wanted to do for Pride Month and right around 4th of July. So the Marvel's cadence dictates a lot of what we do, but our interpretation of it is really up to us.
So when you do that interpretation, how do you decide you're going to do the movie version or the comic version, and sometimes which comic version or some kind of amalgamation in between? I'll pick out one kind of in particular, like Scarlet Witch, right? So in the movies she's kind of this bio manipulative that was given her power from Loki's staff, or the research done off of that. But in the comics, she's a mutant daughter of Magneto. But in Strike Force, she's kind of neither. So, kind of what goes into how you make those decisions on what power sets and how to design the character?
So it's a combination of things. We start with who is the person. Who is this character? What makes them who they are? Who is Peter Parker, right? And this was something that Bill Roseman from Marvel gave us advice, right at the beginning, and said it's about who Peter Parker is. It's not about what Spider-Man does. It's about who Peter Parker is. And then so we try to take who the character is and what they're about, and then we say, okay, well, what is their iconic aesthetic representation? Okay, well, she's going to use chaos magic with awesome red bolts everywhere, and the movie really inspires a lot of that because the movie brings the visuals to life in a different way than the comics do. So the movies are great for that because we have a real-time action 3D world, and the movies have to do these 3D VFX that are really inspiring. So we can draw. The movie gives us great material for that in most cases, or in many cases. So then once we figure out kind of what the character is kind of most known for, because we only have a couple of abilities, right? We don't have like 20 abilities per character, so we've got to pick and choose.
Right.
So we pick the ones that we think are representative. That we don't want. I don't like it if we have a Reddit thread that's like, you guys, like, why didn't this character, like, why didn't Spider-Man shoot webs? Like, what's wrong with you? So we go, all right, he's got to shoot webs. And then we say, okay, what can we do in our world that has that is turn-based map, turn-based gameplay, but animated characters that can really bring it to life. What do we think we can accomplish in the most punchy way? And then with that stuff in mind as a general broad strokes outline, okay, well, Spider-Man's going to be, even though he's super strong, he's going to be more about control because webs. Then we put those out there, and then the designers sit down with the animators and the VFX folks, and they boil down what the character should do. So the designers will say, listen, we have this hole in the meta. This character works with this team, and they really need a tank. But they fight this team that gives them blind, so this tank really shouldn't work out blind. And then they lay out these things, and then we think, okay, well, if you want to ignore blind and you want to be a tank, like, how can this character express that? And then they jam on how to physically bring it to life. So then they go, okay, well, cool. If it's someone like Colossus who's going to jump out in front of everybody and stand in front and wave them behind, we'll be like, okay, well, what if he literally like waves people behind him and is like, get behind me, and so they kind of jam on that. So it starts with who is the person, and then what do they typically do? What are they known for? What do you feel like you have to see? And then we get more and more detailed until like right up in the end, we're balancing chances of buffs and debuffs and chances of dodge and like little noodly numbers. So it gets more granular as it goes. In terms of like comics versus MCU, we try to do a Strike Force version of the character. It's a fine line because the cinematic universe is so present in the consciousness of people these days that we need to make sure that we're there for that. When you see Doctor Strange on every bus in Los Angeles, we want to be something that our Doctor Strange looks like them. But the comics are the heart. So we always try to dig deep into the comics first. And I think the shining example of going a little too crazy into the comics was Ultimus. So. Oh,
yeah.
I think Ultimus proves that we when we want to go deep on the comics, we go real deep on the comics, and we always start there, and then we see how the cinematic universe sort of shines light on that character, so that it looks like something you're familiar with, having just gone to the movies.
Awesome. You guys actually do strike a really good balance there, because there are times I'll look at that moveset and I'll kind of go, why? And then I'll do some more research and I'll be like, oh, they actually did this at some point or other. So it's really cool kind of seeing you guys go deep into that and pull some of that stuff out. It's just, it is really, really cool.
I appreciate that. And what's really cool about the team is that when we were doing a character, we send out an email to everyone on the team going, hey, we're doing, the thing. Who loves the thing? Like who are the fans here? And then we find the people on the team who've read the most of those comics, who love the character the most, and we say, all right, this is your favorite character. Like, what do you absolutely have to see? And so we get some goofy inside jokes, and we get some deep cut lines and references to one specific iconic issue from the 80s, that we have to reference. So the love of the characters comes from the people making them.
Yeah, it kind of has to. I mean, it really does. So I imagine this was an early on decision when you guys were deciding and laying out the framework for the game, that you decided to not have leadership abilities. And so, kind of, what was the thought process behind that, going away from leadership and going more into this passive route?
Yeah. So what I didn't like about leadership, what I did like about leadership was the clear team. Like, oh, I know what I'm doing, right? I know how to build a team around this, and it was really present right in your face in the UI. And like, you look at it and you go, got it. I know what I'm supposed to do. Love that. What I didn't love was that you could only have one leader on a team, which meant mathematically you were kind of limited in what you could do, and you had to build a team around that person. So the theory behind passives, where we've been sometimes very successful and sometimes not so much, is that, well, what if you wanted to spread it across two leaders on a team? What if you really needed to have these two characters and they had to intertwine? What if all five characters were kind of even and you sort of had to have all of them to intertwine? So the idea was to get more flexibility. It costs us clarity. You don't have a clear leader in the corner of the screen who you're building around. It costs us that. But what we gained in that was flexibility and the ability to blend teams a little bit more liberally. I think we have a long way to go on building teams that allow you to build hybrids and say, well, this character could be used on this team or that team over there. Sure, their home is the X-Men, but if you want to put them in with the Guardians, that's viable. Like, I think we're just kind of getting our feet wet there. I think we're going to get a lot better at that. It's a priority for us to allow more theory crafting and more hybridized blended teams. And that's, I think, that's kind of job one for the combat team that they're interested in solving. But passives instead of leadership abilities allow us to do a little bit more of that.
Nice. And I love the reference to the X-Men and the Guardian. So I'm guessing that Kitty Pryde is coming soon.
No comment, but we definitely want to do Kitty Pryde.
Wait, there are requests for specific characters that we'll go into later. No, kidding. But when you are working on the game, how do you kind of balance the needs between bringing in new players and getting them engaged, and versus keeping your in-game players happy and satisfied and wanting to come back to the game? Like, I'm 534 days in, so what are your plans to bring in the beta players or the global launch and keep them engaged? And then, your person that started, like my son just started a couple weeks ago, keeping him coming back.
Oh, yeah. So if you ask the team, they would tell you that I had been complaining about this too much, because there's two elements to this. I'm really concerned. It's like, it's top of mind. First and foremost, we want to make sure that the people who are active and competitive at the top, who are, seriously trying to win every war and working their pants off to be the top of the leaderboards, that they have that those people who are many of us on the team have something to chase and have something to compete over, and then we're engaged and happy, and that are always getting cool characters coming out, and that they're happy. One of the things that makes us active players happy is when we can find good candidates for our alliances, and when people we know first in real life, and are related to, can play the game with us. So one of the initiatives that several of us have been advancing is trying to accelerate new players up towards the late game in a way that doesn't make late game players feel cheated. It's like, hey, I worked my butt off to get here. Please don't give everything away instantly, but accelerate people up so that I can find people for my alliance. I need recruits, and I want people that I know to play with me at the top. So we are looking into mechanics and sort of economic solutions to try to get more people to the later parts of the game more quickly. The other thing is that I personally have a lot of real life friends who play the game, and my roster is better than theirs because I've been playing since beta, and therefore we're not in the same alliance. They're just not as powerful. I would love to have excuses to play with them. I don't have anything to announce about that, but it might be a long time coming, but it sure would be nice to have something like that. So the priority right now, though, is to get people who are in the early game and mid game, or new players, routes to show up and be in the general ballpark with people in the late game, so that that there's lots of alliances in war, and you get good matches.
Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome. But how do you guys go about, or what goes into deciding the economy of the game? I mean, how do you determine the value of, say, 50 orange ability mats versus 25 purple ability mats? What kind of goes into that thought process for the economy?
Well, at launch, it was inspired by other games in the genre, just sort of relative to rarity. So we would say, I don't know, like this number seems good. I've played Summoner's War and Rage of Bahamut and this and that and the other thing, and 50 seems like a good number for this. All right, that feels good. Which is just genre physics, right? And conventions. And then from there we say, all right, well, but if the drop rate of blue is 1 in 5 and the drop rate of purple is 1 in 50, that suggests some mathematical relationship. And then we tweak it based on, how fun or frustrating is the thing you have to do to get it. Also, we want to make sure that there's always something out there for people to test themselves against in a chase. So we don't use the same numbers everywhere. Sometimes we arbitrarily say, listen, we don't want this thing to be overly available yet, because we don't want all the players to flood over to this part of the game or to change their behavior radically. We want to because maybe we have a new feature coming that we want to highlight. So war was a big example of this. War rewards, we wanted to make sure that, hey, listen, we're going to ask you to do this crazy thing. We want a new kind of reward in war. Now we're in a place where we're like, okay, we just want war to be more generally rewarding. We want to be more generous. Now that people have experienced it, we know how much energy it takes. We know how serious people are about competing. We have a sense of how it affects our daily lives, right? When the war starts, I want to be online. We know how that feels now. And that allows us to tune the economy to say, like, okay, listen, we're going to emphasize a reward for that because it takes so much emotional energy to do it, and it's so high intensity. We want to make sure that feels like it has a commensurate reward. So a little bit of it is genre convention, and a lot of it is seeing how people are playing the game and attempting to give you rewards that sort of feel good for a given part of the game.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I know that for me is one of the big things is, when we reach certain goals, having those rewards to kind of justify the effort put in it feels good. And that's extremely important, as long as it also helps to grow, because that's the other side of things too. But was there something that maybe you thought the community was not going to receive well that they did, and kind of made you feel good that you're pleasantly surprised about that?
Yeah, that was a really interesting question. I posed it to some people on the team, and because we all see different things about the game, some of us said, no, that was going to be totally awesome, and some of us were like, I didn't think that was going to be so great. So there's disagreement on what we thought was going to work in a lot of cases. One of the ones that I was pleasantly surprised about, but the team was not surprised about, was the sort of Dark Dimension Widowmaker situation. When Widowmaker got to choose a character, and I was like, that's going to be really cool. We all thought it was going to be cool, but it was so much more dramatic and like crazy emotionally than we thought it was going to be. And some people were not surprised. I thought it was really neat. It was really cool to see the excitement over that, and eventually choosing Captain Marvel, and it was a joy for us to put Widowmaker's name up on the billboard. That whole thing was really a lot more interesting and engaging than I thought it might have been. I loved.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I loved that. And then of course, every now and then we make a character that's a little OP, and we're surprised by the outcome. But I was going to say Minerva.
Minerva, Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, we was a little more on purpose, but Minerva, we was a little overkill relative to what we intended. But what I love about that, I love it when characters that we didn't necessarily intend to be super crazy powerful are either just raw OP and shake up the game, or more in a better way, you find interesting ways to use them. I'm a big fan of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. And so it made me really happy at launch that we made Quake 2 good. A lot of people were like, who the heck is Quake? And I was like, shut up. Quake's great.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think I stopped around season 4. I need to get back into it. After Jenna got off the planet. That's kind of
Oh
like,
yeah,
ugh.
that was interesting. And then they full blown, not to spoil it too much, but they full blown go to space and like spend a lot of time with the Kree, and that made me really happy. You can tell that we have an emphasis on the Kree in this game. So when they just full blown went to space and like there's just Kree in every episode, I was tickled pink about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can. When you pick one of the most obscure villains that may appeared in maybe one or two episodes in the 1970s
Yeah,
as your main
yeah.
villain, your love for the Kree is pretty obvious.
Yeah, we did real deep for Ultimus. I could go on about Ultimus, but I'm glad it came out. And Ultimus is going to get some love. I know Ultimus is not a terribly meta character right now. And the only reason that we haven't buffed Ultimus up to now is that we've been busy cranking out new characters. So whenever someone on the team poses me a question, hey, should we, make the Thing and Human Torch, or should we buff Ultimus? I'm like, oh, make Fantastic Four, obviously. Like we can't. I desperately want to buff him up, but there's too many new characters that we love too much, so we keep getting distracted with the new shiny thing.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately sometimes the nature of the beast, where you gotta keep up with the for lack of a better term, keep up with the Joneses, and sometimes the hedge in the backyard just gets a little untouched.
Yeah, sometimes that hedge is Ronan and has to wait for a while, but Ronan had his day, and eventually everybody's gonna get their day.
Yeah, so. Going off that last question, where, something that you didn't think was going to turn out too well that did, was there something that you thought that everybody was going to be like, oh man, this is awesome, and it just kind of, it wasn't received too well?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. The one that came to mind was the way back closer to launch was the Deadpool. I think it was a 2-hour raid.
Okay.
We were experimenting with timing. Closer to launch, we did a lot of time experiments with Blitz and with raids to see how people would take to one thing or another. And we did this sort of chimichanga-centric, because Deadpool he took over the game, and it was chimichangas for miles. And we did this thing where we wanted super short raids to see if that kind of intense experience would excite people, because some genres of mobile games, that's what they're all about. And we weren't sure how Strikeforce players would react to that. And we thought it would be pretty exciting for a segment. And people, by and large, were like, well, that was cool, but we're fine with the regular raids. We're good. Thanks. And so we just didn't do too much more of that. But we try to experiment to see if something that we were afraid to try previously might be something that everyone really loves. So you're probably going to get more of that kind of thing in the next few years, as we say, as we just got to try stuff. And what I would love to hear from the audience is, nice try, not our thing, or, oh my gosh, why hasn't this been in here since launch? We'd love it. It's really about getting feedback about what people want. So you'll probably see more of that. But the Deadpool one was a modestly failed experiment.
Speaking of things that have been in there since launch, or relatively close to, so Wolverine has been the daily login reward for what, a year and a half almost now. Are there are there plans to remove him from that daily login, or are we just kind of stuck with him?
At some point, you're going to get 2 Wolverines. No, as cool as that would be. We are looking at that, and we're looking at something like putting a different reward in there for people who have Wolverine at 7 stars or what have you. So we do want to change out that reward, either for everyone. I would prefer if it were conditional to you having him. But that conversation about changing that reward comes up probably once a week, and every feature we work on, somebody goes, well, could this be the thing that replaces Wolverine? Like every feature. So it's, believe me, that's an ever-present question. And I think we're inching closer to doing something there.
Very nice. So having obviously been a longtime mobile player of, other games in the same genre, and knowing that you guys are, have a lot of you worked on Contest of Champions, Strike Force seems to draw a lot of inspiration from both those games heavily. How do you plan on, keeping the game fresh and not falling into, a power creep or lack of content trap that, has happened, in those games?
That is a excellent question. It's tough because we have a big team making, very detailed content. Those animations and the models and the VFX are hard to make. And it is what it's what you call in the industry a treadmill, right? Like we're always just trying to come out with a new character. So what we want to do is more gameplay. So War is probably the greatest example of this. War was a very different thing. So yeah, it was inspired by some things you see in some other games, but not some of the bigger games. It was inspired by some smaller nichier products and heavily modified. So we love how that freshened up the game. If I could snap my fingers, not Thanos style, I would introduce something that exciting and that social, where ultimately player behavior, what players are doing and their strategies and tactics are constantly evolving. I would introduce something like that as often as people wanted them. Those are tough because you're sort of inventing a whole new game to put inside your game, and it has to match the roster you've invested in and things like that. So we are going to try a wide variety of, I think you folks will find very surprising game modes that put a lot of decisions and control in the plan in the hands of the players, because that's where the magic is. We can make missions and raids all day, and I can add features to raids, and I want to add features to raids because I love cooperative PvE stuff, but nothing we do will be as interesting and as ever changing as what the players can come up with from their own brains and coordinating. I mean, how strong it is when you put 100,000 brains against something, it gets solved so much more quickly. And the player base is ultimately just has more firepower, more mental firepower than we do, being less than 100 people. So it's all about putting the power in your hands to make tactical and strategic decisions. So that's tough, though. It's really tough. Those things take a long time to make. It always, even as seasoned game developers who've been doing this since the Stone Age, it always surprises us how darn long it takes to come up with a new sort of board game or meta strategy game. So we wish we could do them faster. We do them as fast as we can. They're just hard. But you will see more, and you'll see more pretty soon.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, because as I had mentioned earlier, I just now within the past week or so got my 7-star Ultron, and Fear the Darkness is one of my favorite game modes. And I absolutely love what you guys did there. Not so much Enter the Darkness, because that one was a little weird, but Fear the Darkness was fantastic on the, how you could throw the different players together or different characters together to beat the opponents. And there was a little bit of strategy involved there until you got the, that 7-star Ultron and you just basically auto through it. But the first run through, it was a lot of restarts and stops, and nodes would take me an hour or so to play through, just to try to figure out the strategy involved. So, kudos to you guys for Fear the Darkness. That was that was a home run in my opinion.
I will pass that on to the team.
Awesome. So one thing, and I know we're running a little short on time, so I don't want to keep you too long. But you had mentioned, earlier about, the Thanos snap. So, unfortunately, there was a very tragic event that happened earlier this week that people are referring to as the snap, with, the Auto Alliance feature. Can you, help the community? What are you guys doing to try to help ensure, that quality control, to try and mitigate things such as that happening, going forward?
Yeah, that was brutal. I got a text from my friend going, "Hey, so are you freaking out over there or what?" And I was like, "What are you talking about, man?" And then looked down the hall, and there was potato famine levels of chaos going on. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait, something's going on. Let me look at this. What I can tell you is that we were, just as upset as everyone out there. We really felt that one. And the team has been spending all week doing a real deep dive on that. Okay, what happened? What can we do about it? How can we prevent it in the future? How can we put more resources against what in the industry we call tech debt, so that we're not. So there's always a struggle between coming out with content as fast as we can and features as fast as we can, and fighting bugs and having tools that make sure that we don't make mistakes on our side. And that tension means that there's a term in the sort of tech industry: move fast and break things.
It's the basis of agile.
That's right. And sometimes you break too many things, and so don't move so fast. So we're taking a serious look at what we can do to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again. I, for one, was really grateful to the community for being so cool about it. I was surprised because there was a moment of shock and terror, and then everybody kind of laughed it off, which I thought was the coolest thing. So just thank you, everybody. Seriously, that allowed us to get beyond our emotions and get set about fixing it, and try to make sure this doesn't happen again. So there's nothing interesting that I can say about it specifically, except that our engineers and our production team are. It's priority one, and it obviously has been since the second it happened.
Well, and I just want to tell you from my own personal point of view that as a longtime player who's been from the game since the almost the beginning, that this event you guys really handled yourselves with a lot of really good communication. Cerebro was awesome. You guys were really on top of it, really showed. I thought the communication as this was going on was really top notch. And I've told Cerebro this, the messaging was really well done. So thank you for that. And I felt that the rewards were really good for what happened and some of the extra stuff that you guys threw in there. So it's really nice when we as a community can see things like this happen, see the communication, and see that you want to take care of the issue. That really goes a long way.
We really appreciate that. So if you can sort of take one thing away from this, as you look at the sort of long run, it's the tension between trying to get new cool stuff out and making sure that the game doesn't blow up. So we will make sure the game doesn't blow up, but we are also going to do our best to get you cool new features and ways to play the game and new characters as fast as we can. So we're trying to do everything at once, and we just want to make sure everyone's happy because we play the game, and I want my cool new characters.
Don't we all? So I know we're running short on time and that you have things to do. So before we let you go, though, was there anything that you wanted to say to the community or, anything that you guys want to plug or, anything of that nature?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I don't know that I have anything I want to plug. What I would say is I really like how the community has been in the past. I mean, there have been player association surveys and things like that on Reddit and other channels. I love how the community is always talking about ways to make the game better. And all I can say is that is not wasted breath. We treat that stuff really seriously. And while sometimes it'll take us a long time to get around to implementing a given thing, having ideas and hopes and thoughts on how to make the game better is a real contribution. So we appreciate it and keep that up. Don't think that's going on deaf ears.
Awesome. Now, before you do finally head out, there is kind of this traditional question that we ask all our guests here. So, Jason, why don't you let everybody know, because it's really the whole reason that they showed up tonight. Who are you farming in game right now?
Who am I farming in game right now? I am trying to get my power armor team just a little bit more topped off. My rescue was lagging, and I'm emphasizing the thing. I don't know how much I'm going to go wholly into Fantastic Four. They are amazing, and I absolutely should be prioritizing them over everybody, just for the record. But I especially love Thing, so I'm inefficiently spending to get Thing leveled up.
Fair enough. And look, if you can't inefficiently spend on things that you love, then why do it at all?
That's right. That's right.
So, Jason, Cerebro, actually, Cerebro, you're in the background and you've been really quiet the whole time, but I know everybody's wanting to know as well, who are you farming?
I'm pretty secure on my Minerva Tech team that I'm using for Arena. And honestly, my Guardians team has been lagging. And so I've actually been focusing a lot on Rocket and Groot because they're useful for several nodes in the current Greek raid. So yeah, I'm a little behind the times, trying to get up those Guardians.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. As somebody who finally leveled up Groot to 7 stars yesterday, it was a really good feeling because that was a gift from Casino way back in the day. So shout out to him for, and it was almost a year to the day that I finally got him 7 stars. So guys, I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with us and taking time to talk to the community. It's been a real pleasure. You guys are more than welcome to stick around, because we didn't do Rose Watch and we're going to wind up doing that here shortly. But obviously if you need to go, it's been wonderful having you on, and I really, really thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This has been a joy.
All right, guys. So first we're going to get into what we have been doing this past week. So this past week in game, I have been doing a lot of gearing, trying to get Magneto to 13. I finally got Ultron to gear 13 and ran him back through Fear the Darkness the second time. Got Groot up to, as I mentioned earlier, up to tier 7. And it's awesome. So, unfortunately, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, we had the unfortunate alliance issue, but as part of that compensation, we got the Elite Orb. So, joy of joys, I opened up that Elite Orb and I got a 6 red star Nick Fury. So I'll take that. I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So it's been kind of a big week, obviously, in game. Thankfully, I wasn't affected. My alliance wasn't affected. Unfortunately, our war opponent was. These things happen. But as we said, earlier in the interview, they did such a good job kind of communicating, being open about it, and the rewards were really, really good. So that's kind of been my week in game. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a survey this week because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a regular show on top of the interview as well. So I have decided kind of earlier today, you know what? We've got some loyal listeners. Everybody wants to hear about Rose Watch. It is the most talked about segment, which we're going to get to in a minute. So unfortunately, there's no survey this week. We'll pick one up next week, and we've got a lot to talk about. So before we go any further into the show, obviously we got to talk about Rose Watch 2019. So the roses are absolutely gorgeous. I've got to put more 7 dust on them this week. For anybody that's doing a garden, I highly recommend the 7 dust. It'll keep the bugs away. It is a poison, so definitely be careful if you use it. Don't breathe it in. Don't get it on your skin. I've got one rose bush now that's about 5.5 feet tall. Another one that's cresting about 4'10" to 5'2". And unfortunately, the little piddly one is barely over 3 foot, but they are growing. So it's they're beautiful. They smell awesome, and they just make everything so much better. So all right. So now that we've got everybody's favorite segment out of the way, let's get into some of the news of the past week. So obviously on Tuesday, we had the FoxNext snap, and that snap wound up removing a lot of people that got removed from their alliances and just got put into kind of random random all over the places. So it wasn't, obviously it wasn't a good thing and it wasn't a good time. However, look, guys, FoxNext took ownership of that, and they were like, "Oh, look, we messed up." They came out with some good communications. They were open, and you can't complain about the compensation like at all. I think that the compensation here was really good. Even if you weren't affected, you got something out of it. And then depending on, a few different things, you got extra stuff. And I think some people got like 110 or 120 total, orange ability mats and stuff. And that stuff's like amazingly valuable. So I know that it was a bad thing that happened, but as Jason said, it is something that they are, looking at, they're talking about, and they're trying to make sure that they've got the tools to help keep things from happening as we go into the future. So it's unfortunate that happened, but I'd love to hear from anybody that this kind of happened to or may have a different take. Feel free to send me a message during any segment that we're or any news item that I'm discussing, and let me know that you'd like to talk. And you can either type your question to me and I'll read it out loud, or if you have a mic and it's somebody that I recognize, then you can get your awesome voice on the air as well. So, going to move on here a little bit, and we're going to talk about now today's dev blog. So, thanks, Wilbur. So, Wilbur Thor sent me a message saying he always wants to talk. So, if you got a question, feel free. Pope, if you wanna talk, feel free to send me a DM. Let me know what it is. Again, talk show radio, guys. We are gonna take the calls as they come in, and you guys let me know what you're wanting to talk about. So we are gonna move into the update that we got today, because we got told the Invisible Woman legendary event details. She is going to be unlocked by Sinister Six. That's right, Sinister Six, which is amazing because those guys are all Spider-Verse, which means that not only are you going to be able to unlock the Invisible Woman, but you're going to be able to unlock Shuri. So it's a twofer, which is fantastic, and I think it's really good for newer players to be able to get, because the way they are making the Sinister Six farmable, I do feel like they're going to be viable for early farm. And if you're able to farm Sinister Six early, and you can get Invisible Woman, who looks like she's going to be an absolutely amazing tank, and then you get Shuri, who's a really good kind of tech legendary and critical for that Wakanda team, you're in a really good position. So, excuse me, what we've found is that starting next week, obviously Green Goblin is already available in Nexus 5.6. Shocker is also heading to his own campaign node. We don't know where that's going to be yet. Vulture is going to be coming into the Arena store. Rhino will have a Blitz and is going to show up in the Blitz store, and Mysterio is appearing in the Raid store. Those are all, the Green Goblin in Nexus 5.6 isn't super easy for newer characters, but you'll be able to get there relatively quickly. So for me, this all kind of comes down to Shocker. Where is Shocker going to be? Where is how hard is that farm going to be to get him? Because I know I personally only have I have a 2 red star Shocker, but I want to say that he's still only 1 star. I did not go hard in Blitz. You guys all know how I feel about Blitz. So as long as Shocker is going to be, in a villain node, it'd be really nice if he were in a hero node, or an early Nexus, even maybe somewhere around the Green Goblin. It'll be relatively farmable to get Sue. Now, let's take a look real quick at her abilities, because she does feel like she is going to be a really, really good tank. And she is our first legendary protector, which is always nice to finally see protectors get some love. Because you guys know how I am about, protectors in the game. Thanos, Luke Cage being 2 of the ones I'm probably best known for, especially before the Defender rework. And yes, I was right. My Shocker is only 1 star. He's 1 shard away from 2 star, and I have 2 red stars. So, but getting back to Invisible Woman here, so her basic is going to attack primary target for 290% damage. Then she's going to barrier herself for 10% of her max health. That could be really huge because as a protector, I imagine she's going to have a rather large health pool. In fact, let's see if we can find. She is not, unfortunately, available on msf.gg yet because I don't think she's in game. So, it'll be curious to see what her health pool is going to look like. And how that's going to affect, because 10% barrier, I mean, if she gets, say 100,000 health, I mean, you're looking at 10k barrier. So that's going to be something that's really, really nice for her. Sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things at once here, and so I apologize for how that sounded. Probably not as focused as it should have been. So her special is going to be she will clear 2 negative effects from herself and all allies. She'll apply stealth to herself and all allies. She'll then apply defense up for 2 turns to herself and all allies. Then she clears stealth from the highest health ally, applies 3 deflect and immunity for 2 turns to that ally, and then clears stealth from all enemies. Her special does a lot. Now, we love cleansers, right? So anybody that's going to cleanse is amazing and always good to have on your team. Anybody that stealths is great. It's one of the reasons why, like, I love Loki so much, because he stealths that entire team and then drops the minions in. And I do love here that what she's doing is applying that defense up for 2 turns, and then she's removing stealth from the highest health ally, applies the 3 deflect, and then adds immunity for 2 turns. Now, the really, really nice thing here is that this is not tied to the Fantastic Four. So she can fit into another team, and it may very well be possible that she's going to be kind of more of an off tank, and you'll have somebody with a higher health pool that, say, maybe a shield security, or, Thanos, even though he's got paper thin armor, that she will, but, give that defense up, that deflect, and that immunity to. And then if, anybody on the opposing team is stealth, she's going to clear that from then. X-Men, Fury. So she's definitely designed to kind of clear a lot of that out on her special. Now, unfortunately, we do not know energy costs. So I'll be interested to see how much energy, how quickly she's going to be able to do these things. So her ultimate is she applies offense down for 2 turns to all enemies, and then she gives a barrier to all allies for 40% of her max health. Now, again, this is going to wind up giving a really nice barrier to her allies. Again, it's not just Fantastic Four, so it's going to give that really nice buffer to everyone. And again, it's all kind of dependent on her stats. So it's going to be dependent as how effective this is going to be. And then finally, her passive, when an enemy attacks a Fantastic Four ally with barrier, she will attack that enemy for 250% of her damage. She gains 20% max health on spawn, and Fantastic Four and Namor gain 20% max health on spawn. So I'll be curious to see if that means that she well, it does say allies, and this game does do a rather good job of delineating when it applies to self versus allies. So I was wondering if she might not get 40%, but I imagine she's going to get 20, and everybody else will get 20 as well. And then her counterattacking, anybody that attacks an ally with barrier is nice. That is definitely going to be a really nice kind of hidden counter for her. So if anybody has any questions or anything they want to ask or talk about the Invisible Woman, what do you think? What are your thoughts? I mean, do you have do you like what she's going to bring to the table? Do you think that she's she's got a good kit for a legendary? What are your thoughts? Let us know. We all are curious. So as we wait, Brother Hatcher said that she's OPAF. I have a tendency to kind of agree with you there. I think that she is going to be, now again, I think a lot of this is going to be dependent on her stats because, her barrier is going to be dependent upon her max health. If she's got a low health pool, if she's a low health pool protector, then that's just not going to be extremely effective. But that special, man, there is so much going on there, and it's going to do so much for the team that it's going to be crazy. And I love the fact that she works in any team outside of a Fantastic Four. Yet they're not going to get the plus 20% max health, but they still gain all the other benefits from all of her abilities. So continuing on, now I did mention that you're going to need the Sinister Six and that they are all going to be farmable. I don't remember if I mentioned or not, so let me reiterate that all those characters are going to be farmable as of next week. So that is going to be the week of August 22nd, 23rd. We don't know exactly what date yet they are going to be farmable, but they are going to be available in the game very, very soon. So we got an in-store mail as well about her legendary event. I was hoping to see when we might. We do know roughly when this event is going to happen. So the event will start in late September with more info coming in. With more info in the coming weeks. So that is going to give us a lot of time, a month to farm characters. That is really, really generous. A lot of games that I play will give you maybe 2 weeks for the first event, right? They'll not give you a whole lot of time. And even Strikeforce in the past has only given you a limited amount of time. For them to say, oh, hey, look, you're going to get a month. That is fantastic. That also gives us some other information because we know from a previous blog post that Phoenix is coming back in September. So I would assume now that Phoenix is going to be closer to the beginning, maybe the middle of September as well. But we're going to see how it's going to kind of play out as we get some more information over the coming weeks. But, I still feel, I know that, let's see, I just saw this. So Yavusi said a month is not as nearly enough. Sounds like a lot, but not really. To an extent, you're right. Look, buying them out of the stores, look, if you've got banked currency, you're fine. The campaign nodes, you'll be able to, maybe spend some cores. They're being extremely generous, though. They could have only given us a few weeks or a couple of weeks, right? They're giving us a really good amount of time to be able to give us time to farm these characters. Now, am I going to be able to get, the Sinister Six up to 5-star in that time? I don't know. I mean, it'll be a hard push. Just to give you kind of example, because somebody who hasn't really gone that hard after the Sinister Six, my Vulture is only 3-star. My Green Goblin is only 4-star. My Rhino is only 3-star. Mysterio is only 3-star, and Shocker's only 1-star. So, am I likely to get her on the first time around? No. But it'll be doable for people that have gone hard at blitzes, who have a lot of bank currency. Again, the game is all about resource management. So if you have kind of managed your resources and been targeted rather specifically, it's definitely doable. Definitely doable. So going back to the dev blog here, and again, let me know what you think about Invisible Woman. If you'd like to talk to me on the show, you send me a private message. Let me know what you want to talk about, and we will discuss that. We did get some more information that the saved squads are expanding, and the saved squads are going to be going up from 15 to a total of 20. So it says here, continuing our celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary, we're granting one of the most player-requested features, more save squad slots. We're currently working on increasing the number of save slots from 15 by 5 more to a total of 20. This does take a bit of time, but we expect this to take effect in the near future. We appreciate your patience while we work on this. So it's... I'm kind of torn on this one. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that we're getting more save squads. I'm not sure why it's only 5. Again, not seeing their data schema structure and how they store things. The way I do it the way I would do it may not be the way they've done it. Maybe they have the reasons for what they've done. And so, I know that I don't know. So I would like to have seen more because even with 20 slots, with the number of characters we currently have in game, that's not enough for everybody. It's really only enough for a limited amount of characters. So I kind of wonder why they stuck to that. Maybe we'll get more information as we go. So not entirely sure. They did mention in the dev blog about the Alliance auto-kicking resolution, which we talked about during the interview, which if you're not listening to the full show, there may or may not be an interview episode available for that's just the interview. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to handle that, but make sure to listen to that because we do talk a little bit about the Alliance auto kick issue towards the end of the interview. Let's see. We are getting Star-Lord is coming back. Yay for that. So now that I have Groot at 7-star, I don't have to get up Stitcher, although I've got the shards for him, but I don't have to pay the gold to rank him up to 7 stars. So I for one, am going to have a 7-star Nick Fury. No, Star-Lord the next time that comes around. So that'll be a lot of fun and really, really nice. Because I've got a 7-star, 4 red star Rocket. I've got the 7-star, 3 red star Groot. And my Star-Lord is 4 red stars, so he'll be 7-4 as well. And that team I run that in Arena, so I'm running Star-Lord, Rocket, Minerva, Ultron, and Groot. And that team actually holds rather well. So, because, if Groot gets those death proofs off, game over, man. That is absolutely fantastic, especially if the minions have all dropped down. So before we get that, though, we are going to be having a 2x Guardians of the Galaxy event. So the Space Ace is coming in for a landing, and to prepare for his arrival, we're having a 2x Guardians of the Galaxy event. Pop in your Peter Quill mixtape and rock out while earning double the shards for Guardian characters. So I'll be curious to see how that's going to work because, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Rocket the only... Or not, I'm so sorry, guys. That was stupid. I mean, isn't Groot the only node farmable character? Is Gamora still node farmable? I know Rocket obviously is raid store. Drax is, I think he's arena only, right? Yeah, he's arena store. Groot obviously has his node. And then Gamora has arena store. Or I'm sorry, not arena store, a blitz store. And Mantis is obviously also Blitz store. So I'll be curious to see if that 2x Guardians of the Galaxy event will work for stores as well, because that'll be absolutely fantastic. So Brother Hatcher just decided to brag a bit here and throw out his 7 gold star, 5 red star Groot. So yeah. And Prig brings up a good point. I don't know why I didn't think of this. It's probably also for Ravagers. So we'll have Yondu. We'll have are Stitcher and Boomer even available in the nodes? Guys, I don't farm these guys, so I apologize that I got to look this up real quick. So we've got Bruiser, Boomer, Yondu, and Ravager. Obviously, Yondu does have a node. Boomer does not. Stitcher. Ooh, I can't find Stitcher because I got to rank him up, but I don't think Stitcher does. He might. And then we've got Bruiser, who does in Heroes 4, 6. So, there's at least 3 characters that will be farmable on nodes. So that'll be definitely fun. So that's really it for the dev blog. I mean, the big portion of it was the Invisible Woman legendary event. So again, guys, if you have anything you want to talk about, feel free to send me a message, let me know, and we'll get you in. And you can ask your questions and call in live. Now, since the show was a little unprepared in the form of like a survey and earlier in the week announcements, if you guys have any questions that you ask or have any questions you'd like to ask, we're going to do kind of an impromptu grab bag. So feel free to drop any questions into the studio audience chat, and we will get to those and answer everything that you may have. I'm going to jump down to the grab bag real quick here. Maybe. Let's see. So Doctor Who asked a question today asking, do you think that a script could be written in the Strike Force program to give the characters you use in Enter and Fear the Darkness a boost up to their ultimate move, which you could then use at your first turn? They would allow it, but you would get a lower reward for completing the node. I mean, I think a script could be. I don't think that it. I really don't see a whole lot of merit to that one. That is it kind of breaks the whole strategy of building your team to beat the nodes. I personally don't like that thought. I wouldn't use it if it were available. Could it be done? Oh, sure, absolutely. But I really don't see a whole lot of value into that. So Rootleaf asks, since you like Fear the Darkness so much, what number times through are you at? I have started my 3rd time through. I know it's not a lot, and I actually started it yesterday, and I'm kind of just slow-moing it. My Minerva, unfortunately, is only like 4-star, so she doesn't have a very huge health pool, and if I don't take a lot of care and be very, very careful with her, she's gonna die. So going in and just hitting auto isn't always the best option because she's 4 gold, 2 red. But other than that, I mean, like my first time through, obviously no Ultron. I didn't have Star-Lord, so I was running Fury, Shield Security, Jessica Jones, Mantis, and Groot. And that team doesn't put out a whole lot of firepower, but the sustain was amazing. So I was able to one-shot a lot of the nodes, and it took a lot of strategy to kind of do that. My second run through, I waited a week or 2 after I got Ultron, and I got him to gear 13 before doing it. And I basically ran through it in 8 hours. I would have completed it within 6, maybe 7, but I was one-shotting the Ultron node. I was down to the last 2 Spider-Mans, and the game froze on me. And I had spent like an hour doing that, and it just made me want to cry. So I wound up going back in, running it a couple of times, and I wasn't able to one-shot it, but I was able to like get down Ultron and the Troopers and Pyro, and I think one of the Venoms. And then I finally just one of the other Venom just went to town, and they dropped Minerva. But because I was able to completely take out Ultron and clear so much of the board, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait a day, and I am going to just go back in with a fresh set and get myself to start Ultron. So I had to wait till the next morning to finish the node, but I was able to basically auto that and just go. So my third run through, I am running the second run when I did Ultron. If you're going to do Fear the Darkness for the second run, you take out Fury and you put in Ultron. And the reason being is that Fury with his special where he drops down minions, you do not want eating up those Ultron spots, especially if you have that at maxed ability, because if he calls in 3, then you're not even going to get Ultron's regenerator. If you don't get that regenerator, that is problematic. That's going to make it for a very bad time. So you take Fury out of your teams, you drop in Ultron, and you just go. Now, when you take Fury out, I do recommend in a really big way to use a different tank that is not shield security. And the reason being is that without the bonuses that Fury kind of provides to security with the defense ups and, dropping in the extra shield minions, security dies relatively easy. And my security is 4 or 5 red star. So, I mean, he's not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination, but because he taunts so much, he just gets destroyed. And Minerva is able to bring him back, but he taunts almost immediately. And once he does, even though he's got those 2 death proofs, it's just not gonna be good at all. So I take that back. My shield security is only 3 red star, not 4 or 5. He's at 51k power. With 94k health and 8k armor. So but those guys hit so hard that he's just and so frequently that he's just gonna kind of get crushed. I wound up using Juggernaut, and I found that to be a much better run through when using Ultron. Now I'm going to throw something out here, and it's going to sound a little crazy because you guys know how much I love my aim, but aim security with Ultron is really intriguing because when Ultron gets a kill, he increases the he increases the duration of all the buffs on all villain tech enemies. So if you've got a aim security that has taunt with death proof and defense up, and Ultron starts dropping people, and those are suddenly getting extra durations, she is already so tanky. She's a top 10 protector when it comes to both armor and hit points. I want to say she's like the 7th best for armor and the 7th best for hit points. Let me verify that real quick. So I'm going to jump over to msf.gg. And we are going to look at the stats table. And if you guys have not done this is an absolutely beautiful thing. I love what they've done here, and the way they've added some of these filters and the sortable tables. Now, give me 1 second here. I'm gonna go by protectors and armor. So aim security, is the 4th best in armor at 9,000. No, that's 7 red star. Let's do 0. So let's do 0 red star. So at 7 star, level 70, gear level 12. Her armor is at 6,300, which is 4th on the list. Her health is at 120,000, which is good for 5th on the list. So she could arguably be considered, as far as stats go, a top 5 protector. Now, when you add in the extra buffs, then you get the bonus that you get from Ultron giving her, like if she's got, because Groot's going to give death proof, he's going to give out the defense ups, the other Ultron minions are going to give out their buffs. I mean, she's going to get tough. So it's definitely something that is going to be an interesting thing. So we actually have somebody that wants to talk about the possible AIM rework. And so everybody, I want to give a welcome to Pope. Pope, you are live on the air. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, bud. How's it going? Good to talk to you finally.
It's good talking to you too.
Yeah, man. And while I'm here, I just want to say real quick, a quick shout out to my brothers in Alternate Reality 2. They have reinvigorated my love for this game. So it's been really awesome playing with those guys, especially under the leadership of Darth Longstride. He is awesome. I know Chew and Roy talk about him a lot, and just really you can't say enough good things about the guy.
Yeah, I knew Darth Longstrider from our days in Galaxy of Heroes, Sigma Alliance together, and obviously I was in Sigma MSF early on as well. So yeah, I know those guys. They are some good people. So I'm glad to hear that because finding a good alliance is really important for your long-term enjoyment of the game and wanting to bring you back. But so what did you want to talk about tonight, Pope?
Well, I know you are the unofficial AIM expert of MSF. So I have it on some good authority. A little birdie told me that with the upcoming AIM rework, they're going to be releasing a character called Graviton. He was actually recently in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. If anyone watches that, it was the guy who was in Heroes. Also, I think he played like the Colonel or whatever in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But anyways, so my thought was, since you know a lot about their kits, what you thought a character would need to bring to the table in order to make AIM viable.
I think that one of the things that AIM really needs is they kind of need to remove a lot of that debuffing. It's a really cool kind of mechanic, and it was something interesting to try. But the problem is that it makes them or at least it should limit the debuffs that they get. Right, like so AIM security, it makes sense for AIM security to get a slow with a taunt because you want a slow tank, but it doesn't make sense for AIM monstrosity, who is already an extremely slow character, to get slow as well because you're just going to throw your hands up in the air and go, well, that game's over. Doesn't matter that he gets the offense up. So it's extremely important that the balance be there with the proper debuffs being applied, because AIM is a research company, right? They that's their whole thing, is the advanced idea mechanics. They do research, they do experimentation. So, and sometimes with experimentation, comes negative effects. But I think that those should really be kind of limited there. Now, I had not heard about Graviton coming to the game, or even knowing anything about him. He's a molecularly altered human. He's from Alberta, Canada. He first appeared in Avengers 158 in April 1977. Let's see, what is his powers in the comics? So he's got gravitokinesis. So he can manipulate graviton. So basically, he just manipulates gravity. So he's a physicist, so that makes sense that he would be with AIM. He's got a nihilistic insanity. Okay, then. He can fly. He can slow others. So Pope, I kind of see this guy, looking at his kit here, I kind of see they may go kind of a Magneto route with him without the blinds.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
So, because he can slow people. But so maybe kind of a combination of Quake and Magneto, where maybe he'll be able to pull everybody together into that group for better chaining. He'll be able to slow or apply mass buffs or mass debuffs. So him to be able to work, I mean, AIM obviously is definitely going to need some type of rework here. They're going to need, Scientist Supreme definitely needs to have kind of a, I feel like she needs kind of a speed up. Her kit works really well, especially in certain conditions. A monstrosity, he's definitely got to be sped up. In that team, Researcher is the one I throw out. Infector is really, really cool. I love what he does. He was kind of Psylocke before Psylocke was in the game.
Right.
Obviously security, aim security for all the denigration that aim gets. She's actually a really good tank. So, if you can get extra buffs on her, like a defense up, woof, man, that's gonna be kind of amazing. I really feel like the guy that's going to be left out, other than Researcher, because Scientist Supreme is going to kind of take on that role. You might make a case, depending on what type of rework they get, you could kind of make a case that Scientist Supreme may be the one that's left out, and you put Graviton in as kind of that quote unquote leader, that depending on what he does. But I really feel like Monstrosity or Assaulter may be one of the two that are left off that team.
Okay.
And again, it really depends on what they do with the buffs, because Assaulter getting a speed up, yeah, it's nice. He's going to go more often, but depending on what debuff he gets, if he gets offense down, he can have all the speed ups in the world, but he's hitting like a wet noodle. Monstrosity. Monstrosity and Assaulter are two of the hardest hitting characters in the game. So it's kind of hard to justify leaving them off, but with Monstrosity being so slow, and depending on what debuff he gets, even though he gives himself the offense up, it's just and then Assaulter, if he gives himself offense down, game over, man. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the reworks, and it's going to depend on what abilities they give Graviton, because he's got to kind of work with the rest of the aim.
I think Darkwing just posted something in chat. It looks, I don't know if that's legit or not, but he posted some superior Gravitonium coming to the game. So I guess that adds a little more legitimacy to what I heard.
Yeah, it really does. So won't you send your source my contact information? We can have a nice chat. We have a really nice chat. So Brother Hatcher mentions that Assaulter has the highest base damage in the game, and that's absolutely correct. The problem is that Assaulter's basic does not hit extremely hard, if I remember correctly. Let's see, aim Assaulter. So aim Assaulter only attacks for 160% damage. It does apply bleed, which is nice. But that 160% damage really kind of hurts, because he's not going to hit for as much as you would like, because let me jump back over to the stat table here. Let's see. Again, I tried to do everything with 0 red star. Let's see. Assaulter doesn't have the highest base damage. Actually, that honor goes to Cyclops, followed by Rocket Raccoon and Punisher. Assaulter's 4th on the list, though, with 11,500 basically. So, and that's at level 70, gear 12. So if you think that he's hit, if you think hitting for 160% of that base, if he's maxed out without any red stars, he's gonna hit for what, 18,000 maybe. Wow. A little bit more if it's a crit. But, I don't know. I don't feel that Assaulter really needs that speed up. He's already got 118 base speed, so he's one of the faster characters in the game. So that's just, I think Assaulter needs some more. But again, they're minions. What do you kind of expect?
Yeah, no, I would love for this to be true. I mean, we all love to give you so much crap for your aim team, but it'd be awesome to see you, get your due justice. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I know I would love to see aim get a rework. I wish I could brag a little bit more about aim, but honestly, other than Monstrosity, I don't have the best aim team out there. But I will tell you somebody, if you're ever on the official MSF Discord, there is somebody that is in there that I thought he was a mod. His name is, I want to say Alolian. who is absolutely in love with aim. So that person definitely has Alley Lion, Alylion. Alley Lion has some aim love. We have actually talked on the MSF general chat about aim quite a few times.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I try to keep the number of Discords I'm in to a minimum just because of so many notifications, but
yeah,
I'll definitely look into that.
I wind up server muting. My list of servers right now is, what's a lot? It is a lot. I don't go to half of them. I could probably leave most of them, but obviously I need to stick with the MSF Discord so I can post content. And obviously I got to have my Galaxy of Heroes Discords. So that takes up a big chunk of them right there.
Yeah,
but
I put that. Oh, I was just saying I put Galaxy of Heroes down recently. About the time I joined ANR2, I couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much.
I feel you on that one. I have been rather despondent with Galaxy of Heroes recently. Especially with the new gear crunch that they added in. Sorry guys, I know it's an MSF podcast, but I feel you, and I just I'm kind of a launch player, so it's hard to take 4 years of my life and just kind of go whatever and throw it out the window. I know it's a sunken cost fallacy, but it's not about the money for me. It's about the time I put into it.
Right.
And I can auto through most things except for like the new GOTV, so it's not horrible, a horrible experience. But well, Pope, I really appreciate your question. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or was that all you kind of had on your mind tonight?
Yeah, that's the only thing I had prepared. But I appreciate you having me on, buddy, and I really appreciate all you do for the community and the game. So.
Well, thanks, man. Really appreciate that. You take care, and be safe running your store, okay?
All right, thanks, Dorian. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye. All right, guys. So that is kind of how that is going to roll. If you want to do a call-in, just send me a message and let me know that you have a question. You have something you want to talk about, Strike Force related, we will get you on the air. Or if you have any questions for the grab bag, feel free to let me know. Or just post them in the studio audience. You can send them to me privately, or you can post them in the studio audience. So earlier, Captain Murdoch wanted to talk about something. He wanted to talk about how there are characters that get announced and get shown in games that are not actually made available. For example, Cyclops and Coulson. He thinks that Coulson comes in and can actually give S.H.I.E.L.D. a facelift to make them more meta, but Cyclops add burst power, but doesn't change much about that team. Yeah, I agree with you there. I do think that Coulson's going to come in and does give S.H.I.E.L.D. that facelift that they need to get back to where they were. And I mean, look, they're still one of the best teams in the game, and because they're so good in so many different areas. A lot of the teams that we've been seeing recently are much more focused into, specific areas of the game, like Fantastic Four, with Namor is really specifically a war team. Now some of those characters can be broken out and used in others because the bonuses are good everywhere. You see X-Men, which were really kind of designed to be that quote unquote apex X-Men team, and so S.H.I.E.L.D. is so good in so many different areas. I mean, they're not top of the arena meta if you're a late game player. If you're more of a newer to mid-level player, and you've got S.H.I.E.L.D. and you've got Nick Fury, you're gonna be sitting in a really good position. If you're, like I said, if you're kind of that in-game player, though, I mean, they still have their uses in different areas, but they're not as OP as they once were. So if Coulson could bring any of that back, that would be absolutely awesome. I'd love to see it. I know we all. I mean, it's been what, about a year now since Fury was introduced into the game. So it'll be interesting to see how Coulson in his dynamics really works. Now, I'm not sure that I fully agree with Cyclops only being burst damage. I mean, he's going to apply taunt to the two most injured enemies. He's going to attack all the targets plus apply slow. he's going to give, he's going to get some offense up when he's going to apply disrupted. I mean, he does more than just that burst damage. He's going to do some debuffing. He's going to do the damage. I mean, I don't think Cyclops. I think Cyclops is more than just the burst damage. So I'm not sure I fully agree with your statement there about Cyclops. So let's see. Was there anybody else? All right, guys. I think that pretty much does it for the grab bag. I'm gonna leave that option open for a little bit longer for people. But we're gonna go ahead and move on here. So we had the Thing event campaign going on. I have to admit that he's kind of underwhelming. FoxNext has, I think, publicly said, he's intended to be used with the rest of the Fantastic Four, and you kind of need the entire Fantastic Four team for him to realize his full potential, which is fair. I was a bit surprised to see him being a brawler instead of kind of a protector, but Sue as a protector does make sense. And I mean, I think I've said it before in previous episodes that I mean, his whole shtick is it's clobbering time, right? So him being a brawler does make sense. The campaign I found to be relatively easy, kind of autoing my way through that without much problem. So hopefully people are going to be able to get enough to be able to use him if they can get the rest of their Fantastic Four. Now my I know how this is going to end up sounding. My thing is only 2 stars, but he's close to a 3rd star. So, I'm hitting those events daily, and when I max out my campaign energy, I'm just autoing those nodes. So, okay. So, Darkwing posted here that Invisible Woman's kit makes the Thing the protector, and that's possibly very true. I think we kind of need to see Sue's health pool before we can say that definitively, but it would make sense. I mean, if we look at the Fantastic Four, let's see. Let's take a look here real quick. So you guys are going to hear me nerd out. I apologize. So we're going to go and we're going to filter by Fantastic Four. And so, believe it or not, his health with no red stars is going to be 121,000. So I can't imagine Sue having more than that. I mean, she's a protector, so it would be nice. But I think she's going to rely a lot on her barrier. But the problem is that her barrier is reliant upon her health. So there's got to be a delicate balancing act there. And you got to be careful. If Thing's taking damage, Mr. Fantastic's going to wind up getting that because he's at 107,000 health and he's got like no armor. I mean, he's got 200 or 2,000 armor. So, it'll be definitely interesting to see what happens. Now, somebody says it's in her kit that the Thing won't get stealth. I don't think it says specifically that this Thing won't get stealth. It says that it'll clear stealth from the highest health ally. I think it depends on how you read this, right? Does it mean current health or does it mean max health? Because normally when they are talking about the max health of a character, it would say the highest max health ally. But since it says highest health ally, I think they talk about current health. So if the Thing's been hit and he's no longer the highest health ally, he's going to get stealthed. So if there's something in her kit on that I'm reading from the blog and from the Envoy notes we got, there's no guarantee that he is going to be the one getting that. So, it's an interesting mechanic. It really is. So we'll have to see what happens if it's going to be the max health, or if it's just going to be the highest health. In fact, that may be a question I'm gonna send back to FoxNext and ask them, because it would be really, really easy for an opponent to kind of focus down the Thing a little bit, and suddenly, Reed is getting taunt basically by not getting stealth, because his health is almost right there with the things. So I will send that off to FoxNext to ask about the mechanics on that and ask if that is max health or current health. The current health makes more sense because you don't want Thane getting unstealthed if he's at 5 health, right? You want your higher health people taking that damage, hopefully so he can heal up somehow. So, all right. Guys, I think that's pretty much going to do it this week. So, but before we go, Brother Hatcher asked, how fast is she? So we don't know her stats yet. That wasn't given to us as the envoys. They're not on msf.gg. So I would assume, I really don't know. I hate to hazard a guess and be like completely wrong. I mean, if she was in the 120 range, that would be fantastic. But it also depends not just on her speed, but also on her energy, right? Because if that special, which does that quote unquote taunt by stealthing and unstealthing, is like 5 energy and she only starts at 3, that could be problematic. So, got to get her. There are a couple of things you got to take into consideration there. More than just her speed, it's also got to be. How much energy it's going to require. So mentioned having to get get off before Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel is sitting at 127 speed, so she would have to be 128 up to go before Captain Marvel. So it's got to be ready turn 1. If it's not ready turn 1, then you might want to have a separate tank. Now, again, this is going to be, we're kind of talking about things that, because again, she doesn't have to go into a Fantastic Four team. And, it also depends on what mode we're talking about, because if we're in war, you're running her with Namor, right? And you're running the whole Fantastic Four team, and you're running with Namor, which kind of adds, another dynamic to it. Because what's Namor gonna do to that? Let's see, what is his? I want to go to the stat table. Sorry. What is his? So Namor is going to be the tank. Namor has 173,000. Oh, that's at 4 red star or 7 red star. Sorry. It'll be really close, right? So Thang was what at 121,000. Namor is at 119,000. So Namor could wind up being the one that's unstealthed in war, depending on what the opponents do. Now, obviously, if you want to try them in arena, they may be better broken up. They do get some nice Fantastic Four bonuses. They just throw Ultron as the 5th, right? Because Ultron is that ultimate plug and play character. Blitz, you might wind up breaking them up. We'll have to see how that all works out. But yeah, Namor is rather hefty with his health pool. So you definitely gonna be happy with that, because you don't want Mr. Fantastic with his low armor. At least Namor has like a 4K armor at 7 star, level 70, gear 12. So, all right, guys. That's going to kind of do it for our show tonight. Just remember that going forward, we may do more of these call-ins. So if you have questions and you want to kind of call in and chat live, just feel free to join us when we do our show live. We do record every Friday night, typically around 10 p.m. Between 10 and 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. We recorded a little bit early tonight to accommodate FoxNext and Jason, who again really appreciate coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. It was a great time. Learned some good stuff there. I know, people wanted to ask, certain questions, and, maybe we'll be able to ask those in the future. If you do have questions you would like us to ask, if we ever get another interview, feel free to go to our FoxNext questions channel and, post what you would like to ask in there. So before we leave for the week, though, gotta let you guys know who I'm farming, right? I know that's what everybody wants to hear. So, Dorian, who you farming? Well, yeah, thanks for asking, Dorian. Um, I am currently farming Hand Assassin. She is not 6-star yet, because I went so focused on getting into Fear of the Darkness. So Hand Assassin is getting all of the core love right now, to make sure that she gets a 6-star. I had hoped to be able to get to 7-star, but she's going to need a full a full 400 shards to get there. So barring a miraculous mega orb drop, that is not going to happen. And there's no way I'm buying any offers. I'll be happy getting her to 6-star. I know a lot of people in my shard will get Phoenix to 7, but it is what it is. So excuse me, Loki, Nobu, and Hand Assassin are all getting shard love to get them. I think Nobu's very close. Loki is 6-star. Nobu's very close to 6-star, and then obviously Hand Assassin. She's like 100 shards away. She's the farthest one away. But with dedication, I will be able to get there. The other thing I'm focusing on, and I take that back, Nobu is 6-star. He's actually 102 of 300. So Hand Assassin is the last one I need, and she's sitting at 148 of 200. I got weeks. They'll be fine. The other thing I'm farming is Captain Marvel. Not gear. I'm farming gear for Captain Marvel. So I am trying to get Captain Marvel up to tier 12. She's currently at tier 11. So my Captain Marvel is only a 5-star, but she does have 3 red star. So she's sitting right around 40k power. So not the best Captain Marvel on the planet, but she does really well. So she's kind of one of those sneaky arena defensive players, as well as war defense. So those are that's primarily what I'm farming right now. Oh, and Magneto gear. I want to get Magneto to gear 13, because I want to get him into Fear of the Darkness. I know I've already done it twice. I'm on my 3rd time. I want the frames at this point. And since I've got Ultron 7-star, it's been relatively easy to just kind of go in and start, get everything set up, and just go. So, again, thanks to Jason, Bender, and Cerebro for joining us. Greatly appreciated. It was a lot of fun doing the interview, and hopefully something that we can do again in the future. But we do want to thank you for listening to the Ravager Report. You can find us on any and all of your favorite podcast apps, or by going directly to our Podbean site at ravagerreport.podbean.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review, as it does help us make the show better for you. You can also find us on Twitter at RavagerRepo, or join our Discord channel at discord.me/RavagerReport. If you would like to help support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/Ravager Report. And for just $5 per month, you can get early access to the uncut live show a day or two before it's released. You can, finally, we do want to send a great big shout out to all of our listeners and patrons for their continued support. And until next time, keep fighting, true believers.